What if you bought an abandoned house for just $1 and discovered a beautiful woman living there in secret? In 1873, war veteran Joseph Matthews thought he was purchasing solitude and peace in a rundown Wyoming house. Instead, he found Victoria Henderson, a young woman who'd been hiding for 3 years since her parents' death, desperately clinging to the only home she'd ever known. When the corrupt town sheriff threatens to destroy them both, they're forced into a marriage that becomes their salvation. This is the incredible true story of how a $1 house became priceless, how strangers became soulmates, and how love bloomed in the most unlikely circumstances. You won't believe what happens when the town turns against them. The autumn wind howled through Silver Creek as Joseph Matthews stood before the courthouse, October 15th, 1873. The deed in his weathered hands felt heavier than iron. $1. That's all it took to buy the Henderson place. Nobody wanted that cursed house after the old couple died of fever 3 winters back. But Joseph saw opportunity where others saw ghosts. At 33, he was tired of renting rooms above the saloon. A man needed roots, walls that belonged to him alone. The house stood broken against the gray sky, 2 stories of peeling paint and sagging shutters. Windows stared back, empty as dead eyes. The porch tilted at a dizzying angle. Weeds had claimed the yard, tall enough to hide a rider. Joseph pushed through the rusted gate, its hinges screaming. Each step sent boards groaning beneath his boots. The front door hung crooked, barely held by a simple latch. It swung open with the gentlest push. Dust danced in the light that followed him inside. The air tasted of abandonment, stale, thick with foreign memories. His footsteps echoed in the empty parlor. Then he heard it, a soft gasp, barely a whisper. But in that tomb-silent house, it might as well have been a gunshot. "Who's there?" His voice cracked the silence. His hand moved instinctively to the colt at his hip. Fabric rustled above. Quick footsteps. Someone was upstairs, in his house. Joseph drew his pistol, keeping it low but ready. He'd fought in the war, knew how to clear a building. Step by step, he climbed, each stair announcing his presence with traitorous creaks. The hallway stretched before him, 4 doors closed like secrets. Light leaked beneath the last door. He reached for the handle, took a breath, pushed. What he saw stopped him cold. A young woman stood backed against the far wall, face white as snow. She couldn't have been more than 27, with wheat-colored hair falling loose around her shoulders. Her dress, though clean, showed careful mending. Her green eyes, Lord, those eyes, wide with terror, fixed on his gun. "Please," she whispered, trembling. "Please don't hurt me." Joseph lowered his weapon immediately, shame flooding through him. "Miss, what are you doing here?" She pressed harder against the wall, as if she could disappear into the wallpaper. "I live here. I've always lived here." The room told her story. A narrow bed with a worn quilt, a small table with a Bible, a painted trunk faded with age. This wasn't a vagrant. This was home. "But I just bought this house," Joseph said, keeping his voice gentle. "From the county. They said it was abandoned." Tears welled in her eyes. "After Mama and Papa died, I couldn't pay the taxes. I tried, but Papa's illness took everything. I kept hoping someone would come, that I could work out an arrangement. I've been waiting, keeping the house as best I could. 3 years. She'd been here alone for 3 years." Joseph holstered his gun, raised his hands peacefully. "What's your name, miss?" "Victoria. Victoria Henderson." She lifted her chin, finding courage. "This is my family's home. My grandfather built it in 43. Joseph removed his hat, ran fingers through dark hair. This complicated everything. He'd saved 5 years for this. But looking at Victoria Henderson, seeing desperation mixed with dignity, he couldn't throw her out. Not today. "Miss Henderson, I'm Joseph Matthews. We need to talk about this situation." Her hands trembled as she clutched them. "Are you going to send for the sheriff?" "No," he said quietly. "No, Sheriff. But we need to figure out what happens next. Have you eaten today?" She looked away. Answer enough. Joseph sighed. Whatever he'd expected, it wasn't this, wasn't her. But watching Victoria trying so hard to be brave, something shifted in his chest, something frozen since the war began to thaw. "Come on," he said, moving to the door. "Let's go downstairs. I've got supplies in my saddlebags. We'll eat and talk. Nobody's throwing anybody out today." Victoria hesitated, then followed. As she passed, he caught lavender scent. She'd kept herself proper despite everything. That small dignity struck him deeply. They descended together, strangers bound by a house that had become the most complicated purchase of Joseph's life. Outside, wind howled, but inside, Victoria Henderson wasn't alone for the first time in 3 years. And Joseph Matthews, who'd sought solitude, found something else entirely. As he unpacked bread and dried beef, he couldn't shake her pale face from his mind. Those wide, green eyes. He'd seen that look in war, but this was different. This was his house now, his problem, his what? He didn't know yet. But as Victoria tentatively accepted the offered food, her fingers brushing his as she took the bread, Joseph felt strange certainty that buying this house for $1 was either the best or worst decision of his life. Morning sun painted golden stripes across the dusty kitchen floor as Joseph stirred dying embers back to life. 3 days had passed since discovering Victoria Henderson in his empty house. 3 days of careful navigation, like dancers afraid to touch. He'd slept in the parlor, giving her privacy upstairs, but the arrangement couldn't continue. Victoria appeared in the doorway wearing the same mended blue dress, one of only 2 she owned. She'd pinned her hair properly, every strand placed despite having no mirror. Morning light caught gold in it, made her look younger than 27. "Good morning, Mr. Matthews." Her voice carried careful formality, though he caught something else, a warming. "Morning, Miss Henderson. Coffee's ready." He poured 2 cups, noticed how she wrapped hands around hers for warmth. The stove barely heated the kitchen. Winter was coming fast. "We need to talk," they said in unison, then stopped, surprised. Joseph saw a ghost smile flicker across her face, the first he'd witnessed. "You first," he said, settling into the rickety chair. Victoria gathered courage from somewhere deep. "I've been thinking about your offer to let me stay until I find somewhere. The thing is, Mr. Matthews, I have nowhere. No family, no money, no prospects, but I have skills." She straightened. "I can cook, clean, mend anything. I know this house, every creaking board, every stuck window, every draft. I could be your housekeeper." Joseph had been thinking too, lying awake on that uncomfortable floor, thinking about her story, told in fragments over shared meals. Parents dead within days from scarlet fever. No relatives. Too proud to beg. Too proper for desperate women's options in frontier towns. And how she moved through the house like a ghost, afraid to disturb even dust. "That's not necessary," he began. "It is necessary," she interrupted. "I won't be charity, Mr. Matthews. I've kept dignity through 3 years hiding in my own home. I won't lose it now." Her eyes flashed with pride that made his chest tight. Joseph studied her determined face, but saw fear underneath. She was terrified he'd refuse, send her to the streets. He'd made discreet inquiries. The boarding house was full of rough miners. Women alone in Silver Creek worked at the Desert Rose Saloon, and that wasn't work, exactly. "There's another option," he said slowly, words coming before thought. "This house is too big for one. You could have the entire upstairs. Your rooms like before. I'll take downstairs, share kitchen and common areas. You wouldn't be my housekeeper. You'd be my tenant." She blinked, clearly unexpected. "But I have no rent money." "No, but you have what I don't. Knowledge of this house. Help me fix it properly. That's worth rent and more." Joseph wasn't sure where this generosity originated. Maybe how she held herself straight despite everything. Maybe remembering his sister, dead 10 years, who'd had similar quiet strength. Or maybe the house felt less empty with her. People would talk, Victoria said quietly. Unmarried man and woman under one roof. Let them talk. We know the truth. But Joseph knew she was right. Silver Creek had long memories and longer tongue. Victoria looked at her coffee, throat working as she swallowed. You're kind, Mr. Matthews. Kinder than I deserved. But I can't accept. It wouldn't be proper. Morning light shifted, throwing her profile into relief. Joseph noticed things he'd tried ignoring. The delicate neck curve, how her eyelashes cast shadows. 3 days, and already she was working under his skin alarmingly. Then what do you propose? His voice came out rougher. She met his eyes, and something passed between them. Recognition of their impossible situation. I don't know, she whispered. I've prayed for answers, but God's gone quiet. Joseph stood abruptly, needing distance from those eyes. He walked to the window, gazed at the overgrown yard. Mother said sometimes God's answer is in the problem itself. Maybe we're looking wrong. This house brought us together. Maybe there's reason. What reason? Victoria's voice barely audible. He turned back, decision crystallizing. Stay. We'll figure proprieties later. Winter's coming. I won't have you on streets or worse. We're decent people. We can make this work without scandal. She stood too, moved closer but kept careful distance. Why? Why do this for a stranger? Joseph looked, really looked, saw not just the pretty face and desperate circumstances, but steel underneath. Quiet grace. 3 years hadn't broken. Maybe you're not a stranger. You're part of this house. I bought the house. Seems that makes us connected, more than intended. But words hung between them like promise. Victoria's eyes widened. Color touched pale cheeks. Mr. Matthews, The kitchen door burst open. Sheriff Tom Bradley stood there, badge glinting. His eyes took in the scene. Joseph and Victoria standing close. Domestic intimacy of shared coffee. Well, he drawled. Heard you had company, Matthews. Didn't believe Mrs. Murphy about seeing a woman. Joseph stepped between Victoria and Sheriff. Miss Henderson is my tenant. Nothing improper. Henderson, old Samuel's girl. Thought she died with her folks. Obviously alive, Victoria said, chin lifted. Mr. Matthews graciously allowed me to remain. Bradley's eyes narrowed. Funny thing, house sold as abandoned. No occupants mentioned. Some might call that fraud or theft. Squatting in property, not yours. Victoria paled, swayed. Joseph caught her elbow. No crime here, Tom. Miss Henderson maintained the property. County owes her thanks. Law doesn't see it that way. Bradley hooked thumbs in gun belt. Course might work something out. Miss Henderson, you're still pretty despite circumstances. The Desert Rose always looking for. Enough. Joseph's voice came low, dangerous, a war tone. Speak respectfully or don't speak. Bradley's hand moved to pistol, threatening an officer. Kitchen tension crackled. Victoria touched Joseph's arm, butterfly light but anchoring. Please, no trouble for me. But Joseph was past caution. 3 days watching her struggle with dignity, seeing courage facing loss. Now this. Get out, Bradley. Return with real business. Sheriff's face darkened. Your house, right. We'll see. And about her. He tipped hat mockingly. Ma'am, I'll watch this situation. Wouldn't want improprieties in our Christian town. After he left, the kitchen felt smaller. Victoria's hand remained on Joseph's arm, neither breaking contact. You shouldn't have, she said. He'll make trouble. Let him try. Joseph faced her, noticed trembling. He won't touch you, I promise. Something shifted in her eyes, softening, trust blooming. Why do I believe you? Because I mean it. And he did. 3 days, and already he'd stand between her and harm. Senseless, but little here made sense. Victoria studied him as if seeing newly. You're not what I expected. That first day, gun drawn, I thought prayers answered with no. And now? She smiled. Real. Transforming. Now I think God has peculiar humor. Despite everything, threats, impropriety, Uncertainty. Joseph smiled back. Stay. We'll face whatever comes. Together. Victoria nodded. Together. I'd forgotten what that meant. Turning to clear cups, humming softly, Joseph realized life had become complicated. But watching her move through their kitchen with something like hope, he couldn't regret it. The empty house was empty no longer. Neither, perhaps, were the hearts within. First snowflakes drifted past the parlor window as Victoria folded Joseph's last shirt. 2 weeks since Sheriff Bradley's threat. 2 weeks of careful coexistence settling into almost comfort. She'd taken household duties despite protests, finding purpose in bringing order to neglect. The parlor door opened with cold air, and Joseph, covered in barn repair sawdust. He stopped, seeing laundry stacked neatly. "Miss Henderson, we discussed this. You're not my servant." Victoria didn't look up from mending his work pants. "You're not my keeper, Mr. Matthews. I choose this. It makes me feel useful, not like a ghost haunting my home." Joseph moved closer. She caught his unique scent, leather, wood smoke, something indefinably warm. He'd been nothing but proper, keeping distance, but sometimes she caught him watching with expressions that made her stomach flutter strange. "You're no ghost," he said quietly. "You're the most real thing here." Words hung heavy. Victoria's needle stilled. She glanced up, found him closer than expected. His dark eyes held something that stole breath. "Mr. Matthews." "Joseph," he corrected again. "We share a house. Formality seems foolish." "Joseph," she repeated, the name strange and intimate. "You've been kind, but this isn't what you wanted. Your own house. Peace. Not a spinster with nowhere else." He laughed, surprising both. "Spinster, you're 27, not 70. As for what I wanted," he moved to the window, watched snow covering mud. "I thought I wanted solitude. Turns out empty houses are just empty. You've made it home." Tears pricked Victoria's eyes. 3 years of loneliness, talking to shadows, and now this man saying things that made her heart race improperly. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't be kind unless you mean it. I couldn't bear it." Joseph turned, expression fierce. "I'm not kind. Victoria, ask anyone from the war, but with you." He caught himself. "You make me want to be better." She stood, sewing forgotten. "You are good. I've seen it. How you treat the grocery boy, old Mrs. Murphy. Fixed her fence without payment. That's different." "Is it?" She moved closer, drawn by something not understood. "You could have thrown me out. Law would have backed you. Instead, shelter, protection, dignity. If that's not kindness, it's not kindness." He interrupted roughly. "It's selfishness. Having you here, seeing you move through rooms, hearing you hum. First time since war I've felt." He stopped, jaw clenched. Felt what? Her heart pounded. They stood barely 2 feet apart, closest since the sheriff incident. "Alive," he finished. "You make me feel alive, Victoria. That terrifies me more than any battle." The front door slammed. They jumped apart as boots stomped. Joseph's hand went to gun, then relaxed at familiar voice. "Joe, where the hell are you, old dog?" A man appeared, tall, broad-shouldered, with charm and trouble smile. Eyes found Victoria first, widened appreciatively. Well, who might this vision be?" "Victoria, this is Daniel Rivers, war friend. Daniel, Miss Henderson. She's staying here." Joseph's tone warned. Daniel ignored it cheerfully, swept hat off, bowed. "Miss Henderson, had I known Silver Creek held such treasures, I'd have visited sooner." Heat rose in Victoria's cheeks. So long since anyone looked at her as more than a problem. "Mr. Rivers, Joseph hasn't mentioned you." "Joseph doesn't mention much," Daniel said, shooting knowing looks. Man of few words, though seems he's kept the most interesting news to himself. He entered. Victoria noticed the limp, favored left leg. War wound, like Joseph's hand scars. "I should make coffee," she said, needing escape from sudden tension. "Nonsense," Daniel said. "Stay. I'm curious how Joe convinced such lovely company for his hermit cave." "Daniel," Joseph's voice threatened. just conversation. But his eyes held more than casual interest. How long in Silver Creek, Miss Henderson? All my life. My family built this house. Understanding dawned. Henderson, Samuel's daughter. Heard about your parents. Condolences. Thank you. She felt Joseph watching, something dark in his expression. If you'll excuse me. Actually, Daniel interrupted, I need lodging. Boarding house full. Joe, surely room for old friends. This place is enormous. No, Joseph said flatly. Victoria looked between them, saw silent communication. Daniel smiled unchanged, but eyes sharpened. Can't expect snow sleeping. Miss Henderson, surely you wouldn't turn away wounded veterans. He played the card deliberately. Victoria felt trapped between hospitality and Joseph's clear opposition. That's Mr. Matthews' decision. His house. Something flickered across Daniel. Surprise, calculation. His house, of course. And you're, what, housekeeper? She's under my protection. Joseph stepped between them. Speak respectfully. Daniel raised surrendering hand. Smile edged. No offense. Just understanding the arrangement. The word hung accusingly. Victoria's cheeks burned. Exactly what she'd feared. Assumptions. Knowing looks. I should go, she murmured. Joseph caught her arm gently. No, Daniel was leaving. Joe, now. Daniel studied them, gaze lingering on Joseph's hand. Interesting. Silver Creek's hermit, suddenly playing house. Daniel, warning clear. Daniel retrieved hat, paused. Lovely meeting you, Miss Henderson. We'll see each other again. Small town, after all. Threat subtle, but unmistakable. After he left, parlor too quiet. Joseph released her arm, ran fingers through hair. Sorry, should have warned you. He'll talk, Victoria said. Everyone will know. Let them. But frustration colored his voice. Both understood implications. Careful balance, propriety, fiction, all crumbling under gossip weight. He was right about the arrangement. Can't continue. Not fair to your reputation. My reputation? Joseph laughed bitterly. Blacksmith who drinks alone? You're the one with something to lose. Lost everything 3 years ago. Everything except dignity. And now? She couldn't finish. How explain these 2 weeks gave her hope, safety, dangerous stirring of forbidden feelings. Joseph moved closer. Confusion reflected. Victoria, Rock crashed through window, showering glass. Victoria cried out. Joseph pulled her against him, shielding. Another rock, then another. Outside, ugly chorus rose. Jezebel, harlot, leave our town. Joseph's arms tightened, heart racing, his or hers. Through broken glass, she glimpsed torches, righteous, twisted faces. Sheriff Bradley stood front, making no effort, stopping. Stay here, Joseph commanded, reaching for rifle. No, Victoria grabbed him. No violence, please. Won't have blood for me. They're attacking our home. Your home, she corrected, tears flowing. Never really mine. Won't let you die defending honor. Enough loss. Joseph gripped her shoulders, forced eye contact. Listen, this is our home. Ours. I'll defend it. Defend you against anyone. Not your choice. Why? Word came broken. Why care so much? For a moment, mob ceased existing. Only this, Joseph's hand, eyes dark with emotion, unspoken truth hanging. You know why, he said roughly. Another window shattered, mob louder, bolder, but Victoria couldn't look away from raw honesty. I can't, she whispered. We can't. Impossible. Nothing's impossible, he said fiercely. Not after finding you. She wanted to argue. List madness reasons. But standing in his arms amid chaos, she felt safer than in years. Safe, terrified, alive in forgotten ways. Mr. Matthews, Miss Henderson. Mrs. Murphy's voice cut through. The elderly neighbor stood at back door, face determined. Come quickly, both. My root cellar. They won't look there. Joseph hesitated, torn between fighting and protecting. Victoria chose, taking his hand. Please, trust me. Live today. Fight tomorrow. He looked at joined hand, then her face. Something shifted, yielding, acceptance. Together? Together, she confirmed. They slipped out as mob crashed in, Mrs. Murphy leading through snow to safety. Behind, Victoria heard destruction, glass, wood, the sheltering house being destroyed. But pressed against Joseph, his arm protective, she realized something profound. Houses rebuild, but what grew between them, fragile, impossible, absolutely real, worth saving above all. In cellar darkness, listening to chaos, Joseph pulled closer. "Sorry," he whispered, "for bringing this." Victoria found his face, touched his cheek, trembling. "I'm not," she whispered back. And despite everything, danger, uncertainty, impropriety, she meant it. First time in 3 years, not alone. Whatever came next, they'd face, as promised, together. Dawn broke gray over damaged house. Joseph stood in the parlor surveying destruction. Windows gaped like wounds, furniture overturned, mother's rocker reduced to kindling. Feathers from slashed cushions drifted, but wall words made his fists clench. "Whore," in dripping red paint. Behind him, Victoria gasped, sobbed. She'd insisted coming despite protests, emerging from Mrs. Murphy's cellar with chin high, eyes blazing determination. Now facing violence to family home, courage wavered. "Don't look," Joseph said, blocking view. "Just paint, just things. Replaceable. Are they?" Voice hollow. "Can reputation be replaced? Dignity restored once torn publicly?" She moved past, glass crunching under borrowed boots. Everything Victoria owned had been here. Mob took even that. "We'll fix it," Joseph said. "Every window, every stick." "Stop." She turned, tears evident. "Please stop. We know this changes everything. They won't let us be. Last night was beginning." Joseph wanted arguing, but approaching horses made them tense. Through broken window, Sheriff Bradley dismounting with Mayor Hennessy and Reverend Morrison, town's moral authority, come judging. "Stay behind me," Joseph murmured. "No more hiding," Victoria said quietly. "If they'll destroy me, they'll face me." 3 men entered without knocking. Door hung off hinges. Bradley's smirk widened, surveying scene. "Quite a mess. What happens when decent folk get riled about indecency?" "Only indecency is what your mob did," Joseph said coldly. "You watched them destroy private property." Now, Mayor intervened, smile oily. "No accusations. We're here finding solutions to this unfortunate situation." Reverend cleared throat. "Miss Henderson, as God's man, I must speak plainly. Your presence here, unmarried, with Mr. Matthews, causes spiritual distress. Surely you see that?" Victoria's laugh, bitter. "Spiritual distress? I lived alone 3 years, Reverend. Nobody's spirit distressed then. Only when Mr. Matthews showed kindness did anyone care about propriety." "That's different," Reverend insisted. "You were mourning, in family home. Now, appearances matter, child, not your child," Victoria said with dignity. "And appearances mattered little when starving. Where was Christian charity? Where were you when I buried parents alone because none would risk fever?" Men shifted uncomfortably, but Bradley pushed forward. "Here's what happens. Miss Henderson leaves today, or I arrest her for moral turpitude. Simple. What grounds?" Joseph demanded. "She's done nothing, hasn't she?" Bradley's eyes glittered. "Living unmarried with you? That's prostitution legally, way I see it." Joseph stepped threateningly, but Victoria's hand stopped him. "Don't. He's baiting." Mayor stepped in. "There is another option, satisfying everyone's propriety concerns." Pause. "Marriage." Word fell like stone. Victoria went still. "Quick ceremony," Mayor continued. "Reverend Morrison could perform today. Then Miss Henderson becomes Mrs. Matthews. Unpleasantness forgotten." "Forgotten?" Victoria's voice rose. "You terrorize, destroy, call me whore, and forced marriage makes it forgotten." "Not forced," Reverend said quickly, "but consider alternatives. Your reputation already damaged. Without marriage, no respectable position anywhere. But as married woman, She'd be trapped, Joseph finished flatly. Tied to me because you've left no choice. That's not marriage, that's bondage. Sheriff's hand moved to gun. Way I see it, Matthews, two choices. Marry or watch her leave shamed. Unless preferring option 3, arrest both. Let judge sort. Joseph felt Victoria trembling. Rage built, familiar war rage. But this wasn't battlefield where violence solved problems. This was crueler. Slow strangling of choice, dignity, hope, need air, Victoria said suddenly. She pushed past men into cold morning. Joseph started following, but Mayer caught his arm. Think carefully, Matthews. You're new, but could have good life here. Right wife, right connections, or be the man who harbored fallen women. Your choice. Joseph shook him off, disgusted. Get out, all. You've done enough. Until noon, Bradley called, leaving. After that, I come with warrant. Joseph found Victoria in backyard by mother's frozen roses. Bushes bare, thorny, lifeless. But she touched gently, remembering past blooms. They're right, she said without turning. About reputation, about choices. I have none. Not true, isn't it? She faced him, tears freezing. Where would I go? What would I do? No money, family, skills beyond housekeeping. And now, thanks to last night, no decent person would hire me. Joseph moved closer, aching to comfort, but afraid, presuming. We'll figure something. I have savings. No, firm, won't take your money, and won't trap you in unwanted marriage to save myself. You've been too kind. You deserve choosing freely, with someone loved, not because mob forced it. What makes you think I don't want it? Words escaped before stopping. Victoria's eyes widened, searching. You don't mean that. You feel responsible. But marriage is forever. You deserve better than forced circumstances. Joseph laughed harsh. Freely? Nothing free since war. Came seeking peace, emptiness. Found you instead. And these weeks. He struggled. Tell me you haven't felt it. Tell me I'm imagining what's between us. Victoria wrapped arms around herself. Doesn't matter, feelings. Look what it's cost. Home damaged, her reputation linked to mine. Marriage would worsen it. Would it? Joseph stepped closer, seeing gold flecks in green eyes. Or would it make real what we're already feeling? You don't know what you're saying. Voice wavered. Don't I? His hand found her cheek, thumb brushing frozen tear. Victoria, I've lived with ghosts 10 years. Dead friends, dreams, hopes. Then walked into that house, finding you, alive, brave, so beautiful it hurt looking. Maybe town forced this moment, but not what I feel. She leaned into touch, eyes closing. Joseph, marry me. Words soft but certain. Not because demanded, not saving reputation. Marry because when thinking of fixing house, I see you in every room. Because your humming is life's best sound. Because 2 weeks of careful distance has been sweetest torture. Victoria's eyes opened, swimming. You don't know me, really? What if I'm not who you think? What if you're exactly who I think? Joseph cupped her face. What if your answers to prayers I didn't know I was praying? Sob escaped. I'm scared. So am I, he admitted. Terrified, but not of marrying. Scared of losing you, watching you disappear like everyone who's mattered. Victoria reached up, covered his hands. This is madness. 2 weeks knowing each other. 2 weeks or lifetime. Does it matter? My heart knew you that moment, brave as any soldier. She laughed through tears. I was terrified, yet stood ground. You've been standing since. Joseph drew closer. Marry me, Victoria. Choose me, and I'll spend days proving you chose right. Sun broke through clouds, setting ice-covered gardens sparkling. Victoria looked up, saw future in his eyes. Complicated, uncertain, but theirs. Yes, she whispered. God help us. Yes, Joseph's heart stopped, resumed double. Yes, yes, stronger, with admired steel. But not because forced, because you're right. What's between us is real, and I'm tired, fearing real things. He kissed her then. First kiss, in mother's dead garden with ruined house behind. She tasted of tears, courage, hope against odds. When parting, both breathing hard, Victoria smiled watery. "We'll shock the Reverend." "Good," Joseph said fiercely. "Let them be shocked. Let them see hatred brought opposite. Not shame, but love. Not separation, but union." She pressed against his chest. He held close, feeling hearts beat together. "Love?" she questioned softly. "Love," he confirmed. Unexpected, inconvenient, absolutely certain. Church bells rang, marking hour. Soon Bradley would return, but standing frozen garden, holding the woman who'd turned empty house to home, Joseph felt only anticipation. They'd marry today, but not defeated. They'd marry defying those who'd tear apart, affirming what grew against odds. "Together?" Victoria asked, echoing their promise. "Together," Joseph confirmed, sealing with another kiss as sun climbed higher, blessing unlikely love with light. The wedding dress belonged to Victoria's mother, stored in tissue at trunk's bottom. The mob missed. Victoria's hands trembled, lifting cream silk, yellowed but beautiful. Mrs. Murphy, self-appointed coordinator and fierce protector, helped shake wrinkles. 23 years ago, your mama wore this," the elderly woman said, fingers gentle on fabric. "Remember like yesterday, prettiest bride Silver Creek seen, until today." Victoria met reflection in salvaged, cracked mirror. Dress fit perfectly, nipping waist before flowing to modest bustle. Mrs. Murphy worked miracles with hair, elegant chignon with dried lavender. "I look like her," Victoria whispered, touching glass where mother's face seemed shimmering beneath. "Spitting image," Mrs. Murphy agreed. "She'd be proud, honey. Don't let anyone say different. Your parents loved fierce like you and your man." Victoria's cheeks warmed. 2 weeks, Mrs. Murphy. Hardly. Pshaw. Dismissive wave. Knew my Herbert was the one first smile. Took 6 months for proper courting. But I knew, like you know. Knock interrupted. 5 minutes, Joseph called through wood. Voice steady but underlying tension audible. They'd agreed marrying at 4, hour before Bradley's deadline. Reverend reluctantly agreed performing. Disapproval clear. "Just necessities," he'd said. No frills for rushed weddings. But Mrs. Murphy had ideas. She'd rallied decent folk. Handful appalled by mob violence. Seamstress mended dress. Baker's wife made cake. Blacksmith apprentice Tim swept church, decorated with pine boughs. "Ready?" Mrs. Murphy asked. Victoria breathed deep, squared shoulders. "Ready." Walk to church felt endless and quick. Main Street unusually crowded for Tuesday. Some faces showed curiosity, others contempt. Few women pulled skirts aside passing, but Victoria kept head high, focusing ahead. Joseph waited at altar, sight stealing breath. He'd found proper suit, black wool emphasizing broad shoulders, lean height, dark hair neat, jaw fresh-shaved, but the look when seeing her made knees weak. Wonder, possessiveness, love. Reverend Morrison cleared throat disapprovingly. "Let's proceed quickly." But Joseph ignored him, stepping forward, meeting halfway. Taking her hands, she felt slight tremor, nervous as her. "Beautiful," he murmured privately. "Certain?" "Never more certain," she replied. Turning to Reverend before beginning, church doors burst open. Sheriff Bradley strode in with deputies. "Stop this farce now." Joseph tensed, but Victoria squeezed hands, anchoring. "What grounds, Sheriff? We're consenting adults entering matrimony." "Holy?" Bradley spat. "Nothing holy about loose women trapping men. Choose words carefully." Joseph's voice deadly quiet. "That's my bride." Bradley's hand moved to gun, but Mrs. Murphy's voice rang out. "Harold Bradley, remove hand from weapon in God's house." Sheriff turned, facing not just Mrs. Murphy but dozen other townspeople who'd quietly entered. Baker and wife, school teacher, doctor who'd tended Victoria's parents, bank manager's widow. Not many, but enough. "Legal ceremony," Dr. Whitman said, standing. "I'll testify in any court." "As will I," added school teacher. Bradley's face darkened. "You're mistaken all. Defending immorality. Only immorality is persecuting good women." Mrs. Murphy interrupted. "Victoria nursed parents alone when others feared fever, kept herself proper through 3 years' hardship. If you can't see, Harold, you're blinder than your fool father." Sheriff went purple, but more stood, creating barrier between him and altar. Joseph turned to Victoria, question in eyes. "Ignore him," she said softly. "Just noise. You matter." Reverend coughed. "Might we proceed before more disruptions?" Victoria barely heard ceremony, too aware of Joseph's hands holding hers, warm, steady, of eyes never leaving her face, voice catching slightly, saying, "I do." Her turn. "Do you, Victoria Grace, take this man as lawfully wedded husband? Haven't hold. Sickness and health, richer or poorer, better or worse, until death parts." Church silence. Even Bradley stopped muttering. Victoria looked at Joseph, this man who'd offered shelter, dignity when stripped away, love when forgotten. "I do," clearly, with all my heart. Joseph's smile radiant as he slipped simple gold band on. Mother's ring, kept safe. Victoria had no ring for him, but he'd said her yes was enough. "Pronounce you man and wife," Reverend said reluctantly. "May kiss your bride." Joseph cupped face gently. "Precious crystal." "Mrs. Matthews," whispered, name sending shivers. Kiss soft, tentative, promise not passion, mindful of audience. But Victoria felt to toes, this claiming and claim. When parting, church erupted. Not celebration, chaos. Bradley shouting about investigations, improper licenses, some trying leaving, blocked by arguing others. But storm's center, Joseph and Victoria, stood calm, hands clasped. "Should go," Joseph murmured, before worsening, down aisle past Bradley's threats. Mrs. Murphy's defense. Outside, December air sharp clean. Joseph helped Victoria into borrowed wagon, tucking blankets around dress. "Where going?" she asked, as he took reins. "Home," simply. "Our home. Let them rage. We have work." House looked worse afternoon light, but Victoria saw differently. Not violent scene, but possibility. Their possibility. "Take weeks fixing," she said. "Months, maybe," Joseph agreed. "Good thing we have time." He helped her down, then surprised, sweeping into arms. "Joseph, what doing?" Carrying bride over threshold. Some traditions worth keeping. Set down gently in ruined parlor. They stood surveying damage. Then Victoria gasped. On mantle, untouched by destruction. Small wrapped package. "What's that?" Joseph smiled sheepishly. "Wedding gift. Put there this morning, hoping." Retrieved. Handed over. Not much. Victoria unwrapped carefully. Inside, small wooden dove. Incredible detail. Wings spread, flying. "You made this?" "During war," admitted. "Kept sane long nights. Carried since, waiting." Paused. "Think waiting for you." Tears blurred vision. "Beautiful, perfect, cradled carefully. First possession as married. First of many," Joseph promised. "Fill house with life again. With laughter, warmth, maybe." Trailed off. Color touching cheeks. "Maybe children?" Finished softly. "Lots. Chasing away ghosts." "I'd like that." Drawing close. "Very much." Standing broken house, holding a sunset through shattered windows. Tomorrow brought more challenges. Bradley's harassment, town judgment, rebuilding work. But tonight, simply Joseph and Victoria Matthews, married against odds, ready facing whatever came. "No regrets?" Joseph asked. Kissing hair. Victoria thought of morning 2 weeks ago, cowering as he entered. How much changed? How much coming? None, firmly. Not single one. There in ruins began building new. One moment, kiss, promise at time. Mob tried tearing apart, only succeeded binding together. Love, Victoria learning, was ultimate defiance. And defiance, wrapped in husband's arms, never felt sweeter. The nightmare came as always. Trenches filled with mud and blood, dying men screaming, gunpowder's acrid stench. Joseph woke, gasping, body rigid, sweat-soaking nightshirt. But this time different. Soft arms encircled. Gentle voice murmured, "Shh, all right. You're safe. You're home. Victoria, his wife, 3 days." Joseph turned into embrace, burying face against shoulder as trembling subsided. She held without questions, without judgment, fingers stroking damp hair. "Sorry," he mumbled against nightgown. "Didn't mean waking you." "Hush. Nothing apologizing for." They'd shared repaired bedroom 3 nights, but first-time nightmares came. Joseph hoped foolishly her presence might keep at bay, instead woken her with terrors like frightened child. "Want to talk?" Victoria asked softly. Joseph pulled back, looking. Moonlight through patched window illuminated face, showing only concern, compassion. No fear, disgust at weakness. Antietam, words coming slowly. Always Antietam, bloodiest day, 17,000 casualties, 12 hours. Field was stopped, unable voicing horrors. "Don't have to tell," Victoria said, "but I'm here if needed." Something in quiet acceptance broke decade-built walls. "My unit caught in cornfield, stalks tall, couldn't see enemy until on us. Best friend Samuel right beside, laughing about something, can't remember. Then shell hit, and he was gone, just gone. Couldn't find enough burying." Victoria's arms tightened. So many boys, some barely 15, calling for mothers. Couldn't help, only keep fighting, killing, because that's what soldiers do, even when stopped making sense, when forgot what fighting for. "You survived," Victoria said. "That's not nothing. Sometimes wonder if did," Joseph admitted. Part stayed in cornfield, part that could feel properly. Hope, dream, trust. Came here thinking if alone enough, quiet enough, maybe forget. Then I complicated. Victoria smiled small. Joseph cupped face. "You saved everything. These nightmares. Had for years. But tonight waking to you, different. Terror faded faster. Because here. Always be here. Promised." Loud knock interrupted. Insistent. Authoritative. Joseph tensed, reaching for bedside rifle. "Joseph Matthews," Sheriff Bradley's voice. "Open. Have warrant." Victoria clutched arm. "This hour. Barely dawn." "Stay here," Joseph commanded, pulling on trousers, shirt. "No matter what. Stay." But Victoria already reaching for wrapper. "Face together. Remember?" Descended stairs, side by side, finding Bradley on porch with 4 deputies. Sheriff smiled, triumphant, waving paper. "Warrant searching premises. Had report stolen goods hidden." "Absurd," Joseph said. "From whom?" "Anonymous." Bradley pushed past. "Boys tear apart if needed. Check every board, box." Deputies spread like locusts. Victoria distressed as they overturned just repaired furniture. "This harassment," Joseph growled. "No real cause." "Don't I?" Bradley moved kitchen. Deputy already pulling floorboards. Mighty suspicious buying cheap. Maybe knew something hidden. Why eager letting Miss Henderson stay? She knew where Samuel kept gold. "Father had no gold," Victoria said. Spent everything medical care." "So say," Bradley gestured. "Check cellar especially. Old houses full hiding spots. Search 2 hours. Destroying repairs." Finding nothing, Bradley's frustration grew visible. "Sir," deputy called from parlor. "Found something." Bradley hurried, grin returning as deputy held leather pouch. "Well, gold coins, hidden behind loose brick. Exactly where source said." Joseph stepped forward. "Impossible. Been working that wall days. Nothing. Calling me liar, Matthews. Hand a gun. Got 4 witnesses found stolen gold, your house." Victoria understood first. "You planted. Whole search, just framing." "Prove it," Bradley challenged. "Your word against mine and 4 sworn deputies. Judge Carter particularly harsh on thieves. 5-10 years. Unless what?" Joseph's voice dangerous. Bradley smiled wider. "Mrs. Matthews agrees leaving town. Alone. Today. Then maybe remember finding gold elsewhere. Trap clear." Victoria felt blood drain. "Trying to separate us. Offering choice," Bradley corrected. "Husband's freedom or presence, what's it?" Joseph moved protectively before Victoria. "She's going nowhere." "Then you'll hang, simply." Judge Carter's son died war. No sympathy for thieves, especially Union. Joseph fought honorably, Victoria said fiercely, unlike cowards terrorizing women. Bradley darkened. 1 hour deciding, stay watch husband hang, or leave, let live. Your choice. After leaving, house felt more broken. Victoria sank onto overturned sofa, tears flowing. Wins either way. Stay, you hang. Leave, not leaving. Joseph knelt, gripping hands. Fight this. Lawyer from Denver. What money? Spent everything repairs? Victoria touched face. Won't let you die for me. Won't let you sacrifice. Jaw clenched. Has to be another way. Gentle cough made both turn. Mrs. Murphy stood, not alone. Dr. Whitman with her. Banker's widow, Mrs. Cartwright. Surprisingly, Judge Carter himself. Pardon intrusion, Judge said, face unreadable. Need to talk. Joseph stood between Victoria and newcomers. About gold. Gold Harold Bradley's been flashing weak. Judge's eyes glinted. Gold, claimed one poker, though nobody remembers playing. That gold? Victoria's breath caught. No, he planted. No, Harold's been sheriff too long, Judge said. Too comfortable, corrupt, but knowing and proving different. Mrs. Cartwright stepped forward. Why we're here. Victoria, father did have gold. Not stolen, earned. Saved my husband's life. Stopped bank robbery. Husband gave reward. Made promise, keeping secret for safety. Never knew, Victoria whispered. Samuel proud. Dr. Whitman added, didn't want charity, but took reward for you. Your future. Gave me holding when sick. Made promise, giving when married. Judge nodded. Dr. Whitman told yesterday, after hearing warrant, if gold in wall matches bank reward coins. Bradley stole, Joseph finished. Must have taken from Doc's office. Serious accusation, Judge warned. But if true, one I'd like proving. Bradley's held town in fear too long. Mrs. Murphy smiled grimly. Some keeping records. Every bribe, threat, abuse. Waiting right moment. That moment, Judge said, appears now. Mr. Matthews, willing standing against Bradley. Won't be easy. Has supporters profiting from corruption. Joseph looked Victoria. Saw answer. Stand together. Good. Judge turned, leaving. Paused. Oh, Matthews. Son did die war. Fighting Confederacy. But wrote before dying. Said met Union soldiers fighting honorably. Sharing rations with wounded enemies. Changed how saw things. War's over. Time remembering. After leaving, Victoria and Joseph stood twice ruined house. Processing. Could still leave, Victoria said quietly. Fresh start elsewhere. Away from this. Joseph considered. New town, life, none knowing story. Easier, safer. But looked around, their house. Thought Mrs. Murphy's courage, Judge's integrity. Quiet people, standing for right. No, firmly. Our home, our people, good one. Bradley doesn't drive out, not anymore. Victoria smiled despite everything. Destruction, threats, uncertainty. Radiant. Stay and fight, confirmed. Together. Sun rising fully, streaming through damaged windows, illuminating chaos but also possibilities. Would rebuild stronger. Stand with neighbors against corruption. Prove love, triumphs hate. Courage defeats fear. Where start? Victoria asked, rolling sleeves. Joseph kissed quick, fierce. Start cleaning mess. See Judge Carter. Then grinned. Make Sheriff Bradley very sorry ever knocking. Victoria laughed bright morning air. Love you, Joseph Matthews. Love you, Victoria Matthews. Now work. Have tyrant toppling. Home rebuilding. Beginning putting house rights again. Neither saw figure watching across street. Daniel Rivers leaned against post. Expression thoughtful. Come expecting finding war buddy alone. Bitter. Instead found married. Preparing different battle. Interesting. Very interesting. Daniel smiled. Headed telegraph office. People owed favors. People very interested in corrupt sheriffs with stolen gold. Bradley had no idea what war just started, but about finding out. Daniel Rivers sat in the telegraph office, fingers drumming against worn wood as he composed his message. The operator, young Tommy Henderson, no relation to Victoria, watched nervously. Everyone knew Daniel's reputation: charming surface, dangerous depths. "Send this to Marshal Collins, Denver," Daniel instructed, passing over his carefully worded telegram. "Tell him it's about the Bradley situation. He'll understand." Tommy's eyes widened, reading. "Mr. Rivers, this says Sheriff Bradley's been stealing." "Just send it, boy." Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. "And if Bradley asks, you never saw me." Meanwhile, Victoria stood in her kitchen, their kitchen, grinding coffee beans with perhaps more force than necessary. 3 days since Bradley's threat, 3 days of waiting for the axe to fall. Joseph had spent them gathering evidence with Judge Carter, but Victoria felt time running out like sand through fingers. "You'll break the grinder," Joseph said gently, entering from the cold. Snow dusted his shoulders, but his eyes held warmth that still made her breath catch. "Better than breaking Bradley's nose," she muttered, then blushed at her unladylike words. Joseph laughed, pulling her close. "My fierce wife, though I'd pay good money to see you try. Don't tempt me." But she melted against him, drawing strength from his solid presence. "Any word from the judge? He's building a case. Found 3 other families Bradley extorted. But we need more. Something undeniable." Joseph's jaw tightened. "Daniel's helping, though Lord knows what he's planning." Victoria pulled back, studying his face. "You don't trust him. I trust him to act in his own interests. Lucky for us, those interests currently align with ours." Joseph touched her cheek. "But I won't have him looking at you like..." "Like what?" Victoria asked, though she knew. She'd felt Daniel's appreciative gaze, so different from Joseph's protective love. "Like you're a prize to be won," Joseph said roughly. "You're mine, Victoria. My wife, my heart, my..." She silenced him with a kiss, pouring all her love into the contact. When they parted, both breathing hard, she smiled. "Yours, only yours. Daniel Rivers could charm birds from trees, but he's not you." "Good," Joseph growled, but before he could kiss her again, pounding shook their front door. "Open up. Sheriff's business." But it wasn't Bradley's voice. Victoria recognized Deputy Walsh, younger, less corrupt, but still dangerous. Joseph moved Victoria behind him as he opened the door. Walsh stood there, clearly uncomfortable. "Mr. Matthews, I'm ordered to bring you in. Both of you." "On what charge?" Joseph demanded. "No charge yet. Sheriff wants to talk." Walsh's eyes darted nervously. "Please don't make this difficult. I've got men surrounding the house." Victoria saw them, 4 deputies, hands on weapons. Fighting meant bloodshed. She touched Joseph's arm. "We'll come." "Victoria, together," she said firmly. "Whatever happens." The walk to the jail felt like a funeral procession. Townspeople watched from windows and doorways, some with sympathy, others with righteous satisfaction. Mrs. Murphy started to approach, but deputies warned her back. Inside the jail, Bradley waited in his office, boots on desk, wearing satisfaction like cologne. "Ah, the happy couple. Sit, we'll stand," Joseph said coldly. "Suit yourself." Bradley swung his feet down, leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're both leaving town. Today, I've arranged transportation to Denver. You'll board that stage and never return. We've broken no law," Victoria said. "You can't exile citizens." "Can't I?" Bradley produced a document. "Signed confession. Says you both admit to theft. Agree to leave rather than face prosecution. Sign it. Get on the stage. And this ends." "Go to hell," Joseph said flatly. Bradley's face darkened. "Wrong answer." He stood, moved closer to Victoria. "Pretty thing like you wouldn't last a day in territorial prison. Course, might be we could work out alternative arrangements. Private arrangements." Joseph lunged, but deputies grabbed him, forced him to his knees. One pressed a gun to his head while he struggled. "Stop," Victoria cried. "Don't hurt him." "That's up to you, darling," Bradley said, reaching to touch her face. The office door exploded open. Daniel Rivers stood there, and gone was any trace of charm. His eyes were deadly cold, hand steady on his pistol. "Step away from her, Bradley. Now." "Rivers, this doesn't concern you. Everything in this town concerns me now." Daniel moved into the room, and Victoria saw two men behind him, strangers wearing federal badges. "Gentlemen, allow me to introduce Deputy U.S. Marshals Collins and Foster. They're very interested in your activities, Sheriff." Bradley's face went white. "You can't." "Can and did," Marshal Collins said, producing his own documents. "Harold Bradley, you're under arrest for theft, extortion, and corruption. We've been investigating you for months." "Months?" Bradley sputtered. "But how?" "Anonymous tips," Daniel said smoothly. "Amazing what people will share when they feel safe. Like how you've been skimming from the town treasury, or that protection racket with the saloon. Oh, and that gold you planted. We found matching coins in your home safe." The deputies released Joseph, backing away uncertainly. Without Bradley's protection, their own crimes might come to light. "You set me up," Bradley snarled at Daniel. "You set yourself up. I just helped it along." Daniel's smile was sharp. "Shouldn't have threatened my friends, Harold. I take that personally." As the marshals led Bradley away in irons, Victoria felt her knees go weak. Joseph caught her, held her, as reaction set in. It was over. The threat that had haunted them was gone. "Why?" Joseph asked Daniel quietly. "What's your angle?" Daniel holstered his weapon, charm sliding back into place. "Would you believe pure altruism?" "No." "Smart man." Daniel grinned. "Truth is, I'm buying the Desert Rose. Can't have corrupt sheriffs interfering with business. Plus," his eyes found Victoria, "some things are worth protecting." Joseph's arm tightened around her, but Daniel raised peaceful hands. "Relax. I know she's yours. Lucky bastard. But that doesn't mean I can't appreciate the view." "Daniel," Joseph warned. I'm going. He tipped his hat to Victoria. "Ma'am, pleasure helping save the day. I'm sure we'll see each other around town." After he left, Victoria and Joseph stood in the empty sheriff's office, processing the sudden reversal. "It's really over," she whispered. "This part is," Joseph confirmed. "But we still have work, house to finish, life to build." "Our life," Victoria said, looking up at him. "Our future. Starting now," he agreed, and kissed her there in the heart of what had been their enemy's power. Love had conquered fear, after all. Outside, Silver Creek was changing. Word spread quickly. Bradley arrested. Federal marshals in town. Some who'd supported the sheriff slunk away. Others, emboldened, came forward with their own stories of corruption. Judge Carter would become the new sheriff, bringing law back to lawlessness. Mrs. Murphy would organize the church ladies to help families Bradley had hurt. And in their half-repaired house, Joseph and Victoria Matthews would begin the life they'd fought so hard to claim. But first, there was something Victoria needed to do. As they walked home through streets suddenly lighter, she stopped at the cemetery. Her parents' graves sat covered in snow, simple stones marking their rest. "Mama, Papa," she said softly, Joseph's hand warm in hers. "I wanted you to meet my husband. He's a good man. You would have liked him." Her voice caught. "The house is safe now. We're going to fill it with love again, like you did. I promise." Joseph squeezed her hand. "I'll take care of her," he told the graves. "Guard her with my life. You have my word." Wind stirred the snow, and for a moment, Victoria could almost hear her mother's laugh, her father's approving grunt. Then the moment passed, leaving only peace. "Ready to go home?" Joseph asked gently. "Ready," Victoria confirmed. "Let's go make those babies we talked about. Chase all the ghosts away." Joseph's laugh echoed through the cemetery, rich and alive, and full of promise. Together they walked back to their house, no longer empty, no longer broken, but full of possibility. Behind them, Daniel Rivers watched from a distance. He'd told the truth. Victoria was Joseph's, and he respected that. But respect didn't mean he couldn't admire from afar, couldn't imagine what might have been in another life. Lucky bastard indeed, he murmured, then turned toward the desert rose. He had his own empire to build, his own dreams to chase. But sometimes, late at night, he'd think of green eyes and golden hair, and wonder if some prizes were worth more than gold. The story of Silver Creek was changing, and at its heart stood a blacksmith and his bride, proof that love could bloom even in the harshest ground. They'd fought for their happiness and won. Now came the living of it. Spring arrived like a blessing, arrived like a melting the last stubborn snow and coaxing green shoots from Victoria's garden. She knelt in the soft earth, planting seeds where her mother's roses would bloom again, when a wave of dizziness made her grab the fence. Just working too hard, she murmured. But deep inside, hope stirred. 3 months married, and her monthly courses were late. She pressed a hand to her still flat stomach, wondering. "Victoria," Joseph called from the house. "Visitor." She found Mrs. Murphy in the parlor, completely repaired now, walls painted fresh, new furniture ordered from Denver. The older woman's eyes sharpened, taking in Victoria's pale cheeks. "Sit, child. You look peaked." "I'm fine," Victoria insisted, but Mrs. Murphy snorted. "Fine nothing. I've birthed 8 babies and helped with dozens more. I know that look." Her weathered face softened. "How far along?" Victoria's eyes filled. "I'm not certain. Maybe 2 months? I haven't told Joseph. Wanted to be sure first." "Have you seen Doc Whitman?" "Tomorrow." "I'm scared, Mrs. Murphy. What if I'm wrong? What if something goes wrong? My mother lost 2 babies before me." Mrs. Murphy took her hands. "Now you listen. Fear's natural, but don't let it steal your joy. You're strong, healthy, and that man of yours will be over the moon." As if summoned, Joseph appeared with coffee. He took one look at Victoria's tears and knelt beside her. "What's wrong? Are you ill?" "No, Victoria looked between him and Mrs. Murphy, then blurted, "I think I'm carrying our child." The cup slipped from Joseph's hand, shattering on the floor. He stared at her, face cycling through shock, joy, and terror. "A baby? You're sure?" "Not completely, but I'm late and sick in the mornings, and food smells strange," and Joseph pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. She felt him trembling. "A baby," he whispered. "Our baby." "Well," Mrs. Murphy stood, beaming. "I'll leave you 2 alone, but Victoria, you come see me if you need anything at all." After she left, Joseph held Victoria at arm's length, studying her as if seeing her anew. "How do you feel? Should you be resting? Do you need anything?" Victoria laughed through her tears. "I feel wonderful. Scared, but wonderful. Oh, Joseph, what if it's true? A little one, part you and part me." "It's true," he said with sudden certainty. "I can feel it. Everything's changing." He touched her stomach reverently. "When?" "Autumn, I think. October, maybe." She covered his hand with hers. "Are you happy?" "Happy?" Joseph laughed, a sound of pure joy. "Victoria, I thought I'd lost any chance at a real life. Then I found you, and now this. I don't have words." They sat together on their new sofa, planning and dreaming. The small room upstairs would be perfect for a nursery. Joseph would build a cradle with his own hands. They'd need to save more money, prepare for the future. "I want Doc Whitman to attend me," Victoria said. "He delivered me, knew my mother. It feels right. Whatever you want, best care possible." Joseph's protective instincts were already in overdrive. No heavy lifting, no working in the hot sun. Joseph Matthews. "I'm pregnant, not broken," Victoria laughed. "Farm women work until their time comes." "Not my wife," he said firmly. "You'll be careful. Promise me." "I promise to be sensible," she compromised. "But I won't be wrapped in cotton." A knock interrupted them. Joseph answered, finding Daniel Rivers on the porch. The saloon owner had become a regular visitor, though Joseph still watched him carefully around Victoria. "Daniel, what brings you by?" "Business proposition." Daniel entered, tipping his hat to Victoria. Mrs. Matthews, lovely as always, glowing, actually. Victoria blushed, hand instinctively moving to her stomach. Daniel's eyes tracked the movement, understanding dawning. Well, congratulations are in order. At their nods, his grin widened. Excellent. Actually makes my proposal even better. Joseph, I need a partner. In the saloon? Joseph frowned. I don't think. Not the saloon. I'm buying the old Stewart mine. Silver veins played out, but there's copper. Less glamorous but steady profit. Need someone trustworthy to manage operations while I handle sales. Joseph sat back, surprised. Mining? I'm a blacksmith. You're an honest man who works hard and knows metal. More than most can say. Daniel leaned forward. 20% ownership, plus salary. Enough to keep your family comfortable. Very comfortable. Victoria saw Joseph's mind working. With a baby coming, steady income mattered more than ever. But she also saw his hesitation. Taking Daniel's offer meant owing him. Why Joseph? She asked quietly. Surely you have other options. Daniel's smile turned rueful. Because he's the only man in town who doesn't kiss my boots or fear me. And because, he paused, because I owe him. He found something I'd forgotten existed. A woman worth fighting for, even if she wasn't mine to fight for. The admission hung heavy. Victoria felt Joseph tense beside her, but Daniel continued. I'm not fool enough to pine for another man's wife, but I can recognize when someone has what I want. Real partnership, real love. Consider the offer my wedding gift. Very late, but sincere. Joseph studied his old friend. What's the catch? No catch. Just business. Though I won't lie, having you as partner gives me legitimacy. The war hero and family man, vouching for the notorious gambler. Daniel's grin turned self-deprecating. Good for my reputation. I need to think about it, Joseph said finally. Fair enough, but don't think too long. I want operations running by summer. Daniel stood, then paused. Boy or girl? We don't know yet, Victoria said softly. Either way, lucky child. Good parents, stable home, everything a child needs. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, perhaps, or longing. Then it was gone. I'll see myself out. After he left, Joseph and Victoria sat in thoughtful silence. 20% would set us up for life, Joseph said finally. College for the baby. Security if anything happens to me. Nothing will happen to you, Victoria said fiercely. Still, it's good money, honest work. He looked at her. What do you think? Victoria considered. Daniel Rivers remained an enigma. Charming surface, hiding depths she didn't fully understand. But his offer seemed genuine, and they needed the stability. I think, she said slowly, that God works in mysterious ways. Daniel helped save us from Bradley. Maybe this is part of a bigger plan. Or maybe he just needs a business partner, Joseph said wryly. That too. Victoria curled against him. Whatever you decide, we'll make it work. We always do. Joseph's arms tightened around her. We do, don't we? My brave wife. My brilliant, beautiful, pregnant wife. Say that again, she murmured. Which part? The pregnant part. I like how it sounds. Joseph laughed, hands splaying across her stomach. My pregnant wife, mother of my child, love of my life. Victoria turned to kiss him, pouring all her joy and hope into the connection. When they parted, both breathless, she smiled. I love our life, Joseph. Even the hard parts led us here. No regrets, he asked, echoing their wedding night. Only that my parents aren't here to meet their grandchild, she said softly. They would have loved you and spoiled the baby terribly. We'll tell the baby about them, Joseph promised. Keep their memory alive. That night, as they lay entwined in their bed, Victoria felt the baby's first flutter, butterfly wings inside her. She gasped, grabbing Joseph's hand, pressing it to her stomach. Did you feel that? His eyes widened. Was that our baby saying hello? Joseph stared at her stomach in wonder, then bent to press his lips to the fabric covering it. Hello, little one. I'm your papa, and I already love you more than words can say. Victoria ran fingers through his hair, heart so full it might burst. 3 months ago, she'd been alone, desperate, preparing to lose everything. Now she had a husband who treasured her, a home being filled with love, a new life growing inside her. "Thank you," she whispered to the darkened room, to God, to fate, to whatever force had brought Joseph to her door. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Joseph would likely accept Daniel's offer, changing their lives again. The town still held those who'd condemned her, though their power was broken, and pregnancy itself carried risks she couldn't ignore. But tonight, with Joseph's hand protective over their child, with spring's promise in the air, Victoria Matthews allowed herself to believe in happily ever after. She'd fought for this happiness. Now she would live it. The summer heat shimmered off the mine entrance as Joseph emerged, covered in rock dust and sweat, 2 months into his partnership with Daniel, and the operation was exceeding expectation. The copper vein ran deeper than initially thought, promising prosperity for years. "Joe," Daniel called from the office shack. "Telegram from Denver. Those equipment pieces arrive next week." Joseph nodded, wiping his face with an already filthy cloth. At 7 months pregnant, Victoria had banned him from coming home covered in mine dirt. There was a wash station now with soap and clean clothes waiting. "How's Victoria?" Daniel asked, following him to the water barrel. "Uncomfortable in this heat. Doc Whitman says everything's progressing well, but she's tired." Joseph's brow furrowed. "Maybe I should cut back hours. Already ahead of schedule. Take tomorrow off. Spend it with her." Daniel lit a cigar. "Can't have my partner distracted by worry." Joseph studied him. These past months had revealed new facets of Daniel Rivers. Shrewd businessman, fair employer, and surprisingly, a man haunted by his own ghosts. Late nights at the mine, he'd sometimes talk about the war, about chances missed, and roads not taken. "Daniel, can I ask you something?" "Shoot. Why haven't you courted anyone?" Half the unmarried women in town would jump at the chance. Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Maybe I'm waiting for lightning to strike twice. Saw what you and Victoria have. That instant recognition, that rightness. Won't settle for less. Could be waiting forever," Joseph said carefully. "Could be," Daniel flicked ash. "But I've got time. Business is good. Life's comfortable. And I get to watch my best friend build the family I might have wanted. Living vicariously isn't so bad." Before Joseph could respond, a rider approached at full gallop. Young Tim from town, face flushed with urgency. "Mr. Matthews, come quick. It's Mrs. Matthews." She collapsed at the mercantile. Doc's with her now. Joseph's world tilted. He was moving before conscious thought. Grabbing his horse, Daniel right behind him. The ride to town became a blur of dust and prayer. He found Victoria at Doc Whitman's office, pale but conscious on the examination table. Her green eyes found his immediately, filling with tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was just buying fabric for baby clothes, and then everything went black." "Shh." Joseph took her hand, kissing her knuckles. "Are you hurt? The baby?" Doc Whitman entered, expression serious but not alarmed. "The baby's fine, strong heartbeat, but Victoria's been overdoing it. This heat, the pregnancy, trying to maintain a household. Her body's saying enough." "I told her to rest more," Joseph said, fear making him sharp. "I'm not an invalid," Victoria protested weakly. "No, but you're carrying a child in dangerous heat," Doc said firmly. "Bed rest for the next week minimum. Light activity after that. No gardening, no heavy cleaning, no standing for long periods. But the house will survive without your constant attention," Joseph interrupted. "Victoria, please. Nothing matters more than you and the baby." She looked between the men, then nodded reluctantly. "A week, but I'll go mad with boredom. I'll keep you company," Mrs. Murphy announced from the doorway. "Brought my knitting and gossip. You'll be begging for peace by day 3. As Joseph carried Victoria to the wagon, Daniel waiting with it ready, she pressed her face against his chest. "I was so scared. When I felt myself falling, all I could think was the baby. Both safe," Joseph soothed. "Both perfect. but you have to take care of yourself. Let others help for once. I'm not good at being helpless, she admitted. Not helpless. Precious. There's a difference. Daniel drove them home carefully, avoiding ruts. Once Victoria was settled in bed, he pulled Joseph aside. I'm hiring help. No arguments. A woman to handle household duties until after the baby comes. Joseph's pride warred with practicality. We can't accept, not charity. Investment in my business partner's well-being. Distracted partner means accidents at the mine. Daniel's tone brooked no argument. Mrs. Chen from the laundry has a daughter looking for work. Respectable family. Thank you, Joseph said quietly, for everything. The job, rushing here with me. Now this. What friends do, Daniel said simply. Now go tend your wife. I'll handle the mine tomorrow. That evening, Joseph sat beside Victoria's bed, reading aloud from her favorite book of poetry. Her hand rested on her swollen belly, feeling the baby's movements. Active tonight, she murmured, like he knows something happened. He or she, but it feels like a boy, strong and stubborn like his father. Joseph set the book aside, moving to sit on the bed. I was terrified today when Tim said you'd collapsed. He shuddered. Can't lose you, Victoria. Either of you. You won't. She guided his hand to where the baby kicked. We're fighters. Remember, survived mobs and corrupt sheriffs. A little heat won't defeat us. This is different. I can't protect you from this with fists or guns. Then protect us with love. That's all we need. They stayed that way. As darkness fell, hands joined over their growing child. Outside, Silver Creek went about its evening routine. The Desert Rose's piano tinkled faintly. Dogs barked. Normal life continued. But in their bedroom, Joseph and Victoria existed in a bubble of quiet anticipation. 2 more months until their child arrived. 2 months of waiting, preparing, hoping. Have you thought of names? Victoria asked sleepily. Samuel for a boy, after my friend, and yours, father. I like that. And for a girl, Joseph considered. Grace, for the grace that brought us together. Samuel or Grace Matthews, Victoria tested. Perfect. She drifted off, but Joseph remained awake, standing guard. Tomorrow Miss Chen would arrive to help. He'd return to the mine, building their future fortune. Life would resume its rhythm, but tonight, he simply watched over his family, the words still wondrous to him. His family, his wife, his coming child, his life rebuilt from war's ashes. Through the window, a shooting star blazed across the sky. Joseph didn't make a wish. He had everything he'd never dared dream of. Now came the precious, terrifying work of keeping it safe. Sleep well, my loves, he whispered to wife and unborn child. Papa's keeping watch. In the peaceful darkness, the baby kicked once more, as if in answer. And Joseph Matthews, former soldier, current miner, eternal protector, smiled at the promise of tomorrow. 2 months. Then their real adventure would begin. October wind rattled the windows as Victoria gripped the bedsheets, another contraction seizing her body. 18 hours of labor, and Doc Whitman's concerned expression told its own story. Joseph hadn't left her side, letting her squeeze his hand until bones ground together. Push again with the next one, Doc instructed. Baby's turned wrong, but we're making progress. Victoria wanted to scream that she couldn't, had nothing left. But then Joseph's lips pressed to her temple, his voice rough with emotion. You're the strongest person I know. One more push, love. Bring our baby home. The next contraction built like a wave. Victoria bore down with everything remaining, a primal cry tearing from her throat. Pressure, burning, then sudden release. A baby's wail filled the room, the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. It's a boy, Doc announced, quickly cleaning the infant. Healthy lungs on this one. Joseph was crying openly as Doc placed their son on Victoria's chest. The baby was perfect, dark hair like his father, rosebud mouth, tiny fingers that grasped at air. Victoria traced his features with trembling fingers, tears streaming. Samuel, she whispered. Hello, Samuel Joseph Matthews. He's beautiful, Joseph choked out. So small. Is he supposed to be this small? Doc chuckled. 7 pounds, perfect size. You did wonderfully, Victoria. Rest now while I clean up. But Victoria couldn't stop staring at their miracle. Samuel had quieted against her chest, making small snuffling sound. When she offered him her breast, he latched instinctively, and the sensation of nourishing their child overwhelmed her. Look what we made, she breathed to Joseph. He's real. He's ours. Joseph wrapped them both in his arms, and for a moment, the universe contracted to just their small family. Outside concerns, the mine, the town, the future, all faded before this perfect present. Mrs. Murphy bustled in with fresh linens and warm water. Oh, he's gorgeous. Looks just like you, Joseph, poor thing. Hey, Joseph protested, but he was smiling too broadly to sell the offense. Word spread quickly through Silver Creek. By evening, gifts began arriving. Blankets, clothes, toys carved by neighbors. Even former enemies sent congratulations. A baby had a way of softening hearts. Daniel arrived near sunset, arms full of packages from Denver. Couldn't have my godson lacking anything, he said, then paused. That is, if you'll have me as godfather. Joseph and Victoria exchanged glances. Despite early tensions, Daniel had proven himself true friend. We'd be honored, Victoria said, adjusting Samuel for Daniel to see. Meet your godson, Samuel Joseph Matthews. Something vulnerable crossed Daniel's face as he gazed at the sleeping infant. He's perfect. You're both blessed. He cleared his throat. I've set up a trust for his education. Don't argue. It's done. Every child deserves choices. Daniel, Joseph started. Let me do this, please. Daniel's voice was unusually serious. Some of us won't have families of our own. Let us invest in yours. Victoria reached out, touched his hand. Thank you for everything. You've been a true friend when we needed one most. Daniel squeezed her fingers briefly, then stepped back, mask of joviality returning. Well, this calls for celebration. I've brought champagne. French, none of that California swill. They toasted quietly, careful not to wake Samuel. As Daniel prepared to leave, he paused at the door. You know, seeing this, your family, your happiness, it gives me hope. Maybe lightning can strike twice after all. The right woman's out there, Joseph said, just might not be where you're looking. Daniel's smile was cryptic. Perhaps. Or perhaps some men are meant to stand guard, while others build gardens. Either way, I'm content tonight. My friends are happy, my godson is healthy, and tomorrow the mine makes us all richer. What more could I want? But Victoria caught the loneliness behind his word. She made a mental note to introduce him to the new school teacher arriving next month, Margaret Phillips. Young, pretty, sharp-tongued enough to handle Daniel's charm. After he left, the house settled into peaceful quiet. Joseph had moved the cradle beside their bed, where they could watch Samuel sleep. The baby made small sounds, squeaks and sighs that had both parents starting at every noise. I can't stop looking at him, Joseph confessed. Keep thinking I'll wake up, find this was all a dream. Not a dream, Victoria assured him, though it feels like one. A year ago I was alone, preparing to lose everything. Now you have a husband who adores you, and a son who'll be spoiled rotten. Joseph kissed her gently. Thank you for our son, for our life, for not giving up when everything seemed lost. We saved each other, Victoria corrected. That's what love does. Samuel stirred, beginning to fuss. Victoria lifted him, marveling again at his tiny perfection. As she nursed him, Joseph read aloud from the Bible, the passage about children being a heritage from the Lord. Our heritage, Victoria murmured. The start of our legacy. What legacy do we want to leave? Joseph asked thoughtfully. Beyond the mine profits and the house, Victoria considered while Samuel nursed contentedly. Love, that's the legacy. Teaching him that love conquers fear, that standing for what's right matters more than being comfortable. That family isn't just blood, it's choice, like Mrs. Murphy choosing to help us, like Daniel choosing friendship over old attraction. Exactly. Victoria shifted Samuel to her shoulder, patting his back gently. I want him to know his grandparents' story, your war stories, our story, how love blooms in unlikely ground. A tiny burp made them both laugh. Such a small sound, but proof of life, of needs met, of their new reality. He'll know, Joseph promised. Every story, every struggle, every triumph. He'll understand what his parents fought for. They talked softly through the night, too excited to sleep. Plans for Samuel's future, dreams of more children, hopes for Silver Creek's growth. The mine was thriving, bringing prosperity. The town had good leadership now. Their son would grow up in safety and abundance. As dawn broke, painting the mountains gold, Samuel opened his eyes for the first time. They were dark, like Joseph's, but held Victoria's directness. He gazed at his parents with solemn baby wisdom. "Hello, son," Joseph whispered. "Welcome to the world. We've been waiting for you." Samuel yawned, unimpressed by the momentous occasion, but his tiny hand found Joseph's finger, gripping with surprising strength. And in that moment, the circle completed. Love had conquered fear. Hope had defeated despair. A house once empty now overflowed with life. The Matthews family was whole. Snow fell softly on Christmas Eve as Victoria rocked 2-month-old Samuel by the fire. The house glowed with warmth. Evergreen boughs on the mantel, candles in windows, the scent of baking pies filling the air. Joseph worked at the table, carving a wooden horse for their son's first Christmas. "He won't remember any of this," Victoria said softly, watching Samuel sleep. "But we will," Joseph replied, not looking up from his work. "Every Christmas we'll tell him about his first, how perfect it was." A knock interrupted the peaceful scene. Joseph frowned. Who would call on Christmas Eve? He opened the door to find a woman standing in the snow, shawl pulled tight around her thin frame. She was young, perhaps 20, with dark hair and desperate eyes. "Please," she said through chattering teeth, "I'm looking for Victoria Matthews. I was told she might help." "I'm Victoria." She passed Samuel to Joseph, moving forward. "Come in, you're freezing." The woman stumbled inside, and in the firelight, Victoria saw the truth. The rounded belly barely hidden by the shawl, the exhaustion of someone who'd traveled far. "My name is Mary Carson," the woman said. "I've come from Denver. I heard you took in those who had nowhere else, that you understood what it meant to be alone." Victoria's heart clenched. She saw herself a year ago, desperate, nowhere to turn. "Sit, Joseph. Heat some soup." As Mary ate hungrily, her story emerged. Engaged to a soldier who died before they could marry. His family rejected her. Her own disowned her. She'd spent months trying to survive. Heard about the Matthews family from a traveling merchant. "I can work," Mary said urgently. "Cook, clean, sew. I won't be a burden, just until the baby comes. Until I can..." "You'll stay as long as needed," Victoria interrupted. "Won't she, Joseph?" Joseph studied the young woman, seeing Victoria's determination already at work. "The small room upstairs is empty. It's yours." Mary began crying. "I can't." "Why would you?" "Because someone once showed me kindness when I had nothing," Victoria said simply. "Now I pass it on." As they settled Mary upstairs, Joseph pulled Victoria aside. "We barely know her. What if she's exactly who she seems? A frightened girl needing help?" Victoria touched his face. "A year ago, you took in a stranger. Look how that turned out." Joseph smiled despite himself. "I got a wife, a son, and now apparently a house guest. You're turning our home into a refuge. Is that so terrible? We have room, resources. The mine's doing well." Victoria's eyes shone with purpose. "Maybe this is why God blessed us, to bless others." "Your heart's too big," Joseph said, but his tone was fond. "Matched only by yours," she countered. They returned downstairs to find Daniel had arrived, arms full of packages. He stopped short, seeing Mary by the fire. "New addition to the household?" he asked carefully. "Mary Carson," Victoria said. "She'll be staying with us." "Mary, this is Daniel Rivers, our friend and Joseph's business partner." Daniel's keen eyes took in Mary's condition, her defensive posture, but he simply bowed politely. "Miss Carson, welcome to Silver Creek." Mary looked startled by the respect. "Thank you, Mr. Rivers." As the evening progressed, the house filled with warmth beyond the fire's heat. Mrs. Murphy arrived with cookies. Doc Whitman stopped by to check on Samuel. Even Judge Carter, now Sheriff Carter, paid respects. Each visitor was introduced to Mary without explanation, and Victoria watched the girl slowly relax as she was accepted without judgment. "This is what Christmas should be," Mrs. Murphy declared, bouncing Samuel on her knee. Full house, full hearts. Daniel had been unusually quiet, but Victoria noticed him watching Mary when he thought no one was looking. Not with his usual appreciative gaze, but something deeper, more thoughtful. Later, as guests departed and Mary retired, exhausted, Daniel lingered. "That was good of you," he told Victoria, taking her in. "It was right," Victoria corrected. "Sometimes that's more important than good." Daniel smiled wryly. "Remind me why I couldn't have met you first." "Because you needed a friend more than a wife," Victoria said gently. "And because somewhere out there is the woman meant for you." "Perhaps," Daniel mused. "Or perhaps I'm meant to help others find their happiness." He glanced upward, where Mary's room lay. "She's running from something more than scandal." Victoria's eyes sharpened. "What makes you say that?" "Recognition. We runners know our own." Daniel gathered his coat. "I'll look into it, quietly. Make sure trouble isn't following her here." After he left, Joseph and Victoria sat before the dying fire, Samuel sleeping between them. "Did we do right?" Joseph asked. "Taking in a stranger, possibly bringing danger." "We did what love does," Victoria said firmly. "Opens doors, offers hope. Like you did for me. That was different. I was being selfish, wanting you to stay." Victoria laughed softly. "And I'm being selfish now. I remember the desperation, the fear. If we can spare one woman that pain." "Your mother would be proud," Joseph said. "Your father, too. Their daughter, making their house a true home again." They carried Samuel up to bed, pausing to listen at Mary's door. Soft crying came from within, the sound of someone releasing long-held grief. "Tomorrow we include her in everything," Victoria decided. "Make her family. Christmas dinner with a house full," Joseph mused. "Year ago, I wanted solitude." "Regrets?" Victoria asked, though she knew the answer. "Never, though our quiet life does keep getting louder." They settled into bed, Samuel in his cradle beside them. Outside, snow continued falling, blanketing the world in pristine white. Tomorrow would bring Christmas joy, new challenges with Mary, continued prosperity from the mine. But tonight, Victoria felt her mother's presence strongly. The house that had sheltered one desperate woman now sheltered another. The cycle of kindness continued. "Joseph?" she whispered in darkness. I think I'm pregnant again." Silence. Then Joseph's arms tightened around her. "Are you sure?" "Same signs as with Samuel. Due in summer, I think." "Another baby?" Wonder filled his voice. "Our family's growing. In all ways," Victoria agreed, thinking of Mary upstairs. "Is that all right?" Joseph kissed her temple. "It's perfect. You're perfect. Our life is perfect. Even with the complications, especially with the complications, they make the joy sweeter." As sleep claimed them, Victoria smiled. A year ago, she'd been alone, preparing to lose everything. Now she had a husband who cherished her, a son who thrived, another child coming, and a growing household of souls who needed what she'd once needed: hope. Her mother had always said the best gifts were those you gave away. This Christmas Eve, with her house full and her heart fuller, Victoria finally understood. Love multiplied when shared, and the Matthews house had infinite love to give. Tomorrow would bring new stories, new struggles, new triumphs. But tonight, all was calm, all was bright, and in Silver Creek, in a house built by love and sustained by kindness, the true meaning of Christmas lived and breathed and grew. 5 years had passed since Joseph Matthews bought a house for $1 and found his life forever changed. Now, on another October afternoon, that house rang with the laughter of children and the comfortable chaos of a family in full bloom. Victoria stood in the kitchen, flour dusting her cheeks as she taught Mary's daughter, Rose, to make bread. At 4 years old, Rose had her mother's dark hair, but a spirit uniquely her own, bold and curious, treating the Matthews children as siblings. Gently, Victoria instructed as small hands pummeled dough. Like you're tucking it into bed. Through the window, she watched Joseph teaching their eldest, Samuel, now 5, how to handle tools safely. Their second son, Thomas, 3 years old, played nearby with wooden blocks. Baby Grace, just 6 months, slept in the cradle Joseph had made, the same one that had held all their children. "Mamatoria!" Rose exclaimed. "Look, I made it smooth." Victoria's heart warmed at the name. Not quite mother, but more than friend. It fit perfectly. "Beautiful work, sweet girl." Mary entered from the garden, basket full of late vegetables. 5 years had transformed her from desperate stranger to beloved family. She managed the household with quiet efficiency, freeing Victoria to help with the mine's bookkeeping and town charity work. Letter came, Mary said, producing an envelope. From Denver. Victoria recognized Daniel's handwriting. He traveled frequently now, expanding business ventures, but always wrote. She opened it eagerly. "My dear friends," she read aloud, "business concludes successfully. Arriving Thursday with surprise. Prepare guest room. Trust me. D." Mary's cheeks pinkened slightly. Over the years, a subtle dance had developed between her and Daniel, careful courtesy evolving into genuine friendship, though both maintained proper distance. "I wonder what surprise he's bringing," Mary said, busying herself with vegetables. Victoria hid a smile. She had her suspicions about Daniel's recent travels. He'd been asking peculiar questions about adoption laws and guardian papers. The door burst open as Joseph entered with the boys, all 3 covered in sawdust. "Papa's building us a tree fort," Samuel announced, "with real windows. After baths," Victoria said firmly. "All of you." Joseph kissed her cheek, leaving sawdust on her flour. "How's my beautiful wife?" "Busy, happy, curious about Daniel's surprise. Knowing him, it's either brilliant or chaos." Joseph noticed Mary. "Afternoon, Mary. Garden producing well." "Very well. Should have enough preserved for winter." Mary ushered the boys upstairs for cleaning, Rose trailing behind. Alone, Joseph pulled Victoria close. "Remember when this house was empty?" "Barely. Seems it was always meant to be full." She leaned into him. "No regrets. Only that your parents aren't here to see it." Joseph's hand found her still flat stomach. "Sure about number 4? "Very sure, though we'll need to expand again." Joseph laughed. "Good thing the mine's thriving. We'll build a whole wing at this rate." Thursday arrived. With autumn crispness, Daniel's carriage pulled up at noon, and the family gathered on the porch. But when he stepped down, he wasn't alone. A woman emerged, perhaps 30, with auburn hair and intelligent hazel eyes. She wore traveling clothes of good quality, carried herself with quiet dignity. "Everyone," Daniel announced, "may I present Miss Margaret Phillips. Margaret, the Matthews family, and Miss Carson." Victoria's eyes widened. The schoolteacher she'd wanted to introduce years ago, before Margaret had taken a position elsewhere. "Mrs. Matthews," Margaret said warmly, "Daniel's told me so much about your family. Thank you for welcoming me." "You're always welcome," Victoria said, noting how Daniel watched Margaret, the softness in his usually guarded expression. "Please come in." Over tea, the story emerged. Daniel had encountered Margaret in Denver, where she was teaching. They'd begun corresponding about educational theories, Daniel was considering funding a proper school for Silver Creek. Letters led to meetings to understanding. We're not engaged, Margaret said carefully, glancing at Daniel, but we've discovered a remarkable compatibility. She means I finally met someone who doesn't fall for my charm, Daniel added wryly. Had to resort to actual conversation. Terrifying. Margaret swatted his arm playfully. You manage adequately. Watching them, Victoria felt deep satisfaction. The loneliness she'd sensed in Daniel was gone, replaced by contentment. He'd found his match. Not the dramatic lightning strike he'd expected, but a slow dawn of recognition. After dinner, as children played and adults talked, Joseph raised his glass to unexpected blessings, to houses that become homes, to strangers who become family, to second chances, Mary added softly, her eyes meeting Daniel's briefly before turning away. To love in all its forms, Margaret contributed, understanding more than she'd been told. To the future, Daniel finished. May it hold as much joy as the present. They drank, and Victoria felt time telescope. She saw Joseph, gun drawn, discovering her in the upstairs room. Saw their first tentative conversations, the mob's attack, their desperate wedding. Saw Mary arriving in snow, Daniel's persistent friendship, babies born, and dreams realized. But she also saw forward. Samuel grown tall like his father, perhaps taking over the mine. Thomas with his gentle heart, maybe becoming a doctor. Grace with her mother's spirit, changing the world. Rose finding her own path, supported by the family who'd claimed her. More children, certainly. More strangers needing shelter. The house expanding, hearts expanding more. Penny for your thoughts, Joseph murmured, finding her on the porch as evening fell. Thinking about circles, that Victoria said, how love creates them, ever widening, you and me at the center, rippling outward. Beautiful thought. He wrapped arms around her from behind. Though you're wrong about one thing. Oh, we're not the center. Love is. We're just fortunate enough to be caught in its current. Victoria turned in his arms. When did you become a philosopher? When a desperate woman in a desperate house taught me that empty spaces were meant to be filled. He kissed her softly. Thank you for filling all my empty spaces. Inside, laughter rose as Daniel told stories, Margaret correcting his embellishments. Mary helped children prepare for bed. Mrs. Murphy had arrived with dessert, Doc Whitman following with his fiddle. Soon music filled the house, couples dancing, children giggling. Sheriff Carter stopped by, tipping his hat. Quite a gathering, Matthews. Remember when folks called this the cursed house? Now it's the blessed house, Victoria said. Amazing what love can transform. Indeed, Carter smiled. Town's lucky to have you both. The charity work, the fair wages at the mine, taking in those who need help. You've changed Silver Creek. Silver Creek changed us first, Joseph said. Gave us each other. As the evening wound down, guests departing with warm farewells, Victoria tucked her children into bed. Each got a story, a kiss, a whispered, I love you. Mary was settling Rose when Victoria stopped by. Thank you, Mary said quietly, for everything, for giving Rose a real family. You gave us one too, Victoria replied. Family isn't just blood, remember. In their room finally, Joseph and Victoria lay entwined, listening to their full house, settling into sleep. Boards creaked familiarly. Somewhere, a child coughed. Normal sounds of abundant life. Do you think they'll tell stories about us? Victoria asked sleepily. Years from now? What kind of stories? About the blacksmith who bought a haunted house and found love. About the woman who hid for 3 years until the right man opened the door. About how they built something beautiful from loneliness and loss. Joseph considered. Maybe, but I think they'll tell better stories. About the children we raised, the lives we touched, the love we multiplied. That's the real legacy. Victoria smiled against his chest. I like that better too. As sleep claimed them, The house stood solid against October wind. In every room love's harvest rested secure, children dreaming, adults planning, hope growing like roses from winter ground. The Matthews house was fuller than Joseph had dreamed when he'd sought solitude, fuller than Victoria had imagined when she'd hidden in emptiness. But love, they'd learned, abhors a vacuum. It fills every space, claims every heart, transforms every sorrow into joy. And in Silver Creek, in a house bought for $1 but worth all the gold in the mountains, love reigned supreme. The beginning had been desperate, the middle had been difficult, but the ending was perfect. Because in truth, it wasn't an ending at all. It was a continuation, love story flowing forward through generations, through hearts yet to be born, through doors yet to be opened. The house that love built would stand forever, sheltering all who needed its warmth. And somewhere, Victoria's parents smiled down, knowing their daughter had kept her promise. The house lived again, filled with love, filled with life, filled with hope, exactly as it was meant to be.